let's ask Nana Kumia a few questions. And in my introduction, I asked whether all is now over as far as the NPP and its troubles are concerned. Is that the case? Everything is over now? You've suspended Afoko. He's the main problem. So, as it were, it's gone.
Well, thank you, Samson. We can only hope that we'll be able to resolve our internal issues in the next coming days. God being on our side. Yes, as you said, the party has suspended Mr. Afoko from his position as national chairman of the party. There were members of the party who had major problems with the way Mr. Afoko had conducted himself since he was elected as national chairman. Now, the party provides for a grievance procedure that any member of the party who has grievance about the conduct of any other member of the party, there's a procedure to follow. The procedure is to petition the National Disciplinary Committee in the case of a national officer.
Right.
So the petitioners, two of them, I think.
Yes, Alhaji Mohammed Aminu Adamu and also Alhaji Suleimana Yeremiah.
Yes. So they petitioned the National Disciplinary Committee against the conduct of the national chairman. They stated the grounds for their petition, and they duly filed the petition at the National Disciplinary Committee. The Disciplinary Committee proceeded to open hearings on the matter. And on 3 occasions, they couldn't get Mr. Afoko to attend to the committee. But the committee, after the 3rd occasion, proceeded with its work. They formally heard the petitioners. Then they deliberated on the matter, did whatever investigations they could, and their decision and finding was that, yes, Mr. Afoko was in breach of his duties as chairman by his conduct.
Just hold on briefly. So far, we've had a lot of talk about the fact that there's been complaints to the committee asking them to be punished and so on, but we have not heard the details of what their sins are. And I'm privileged to have some of that information, and I'm sharing with you. For example, Alhaji Mohammed Aminu Amadu, his petition, these are his concerns that were investigated allegedly by the committee. That, number 1, the chairman wrote to the Ghana Commercial Bank with the instruction that only his signature and that of the General Secretary should be recognized by the bank without any constitutional basis for his directives. Having done that, the chairman and the General Secretary have proceeded to authorize withdrawal of party funds with the use of the party's letterhead. The action of the chairman and the General Secretary has been carried out without recourse to the National Treasurer, who is constitutionally mandated to manage the funds of the party. As a result of the Treasurer, the Treasurer has no access to the relevant bank statements or balances at the bank, and therefore is incapacitated from fulfilling his mandate of managing those funds. Number 2, the chairman single-handedly organized a press conference at the party's national headquarters on internal matters of the party without recourse to the internal dispute resolution mechanism. Example, when the chairman was out of the jurisdiction and the party needed to meet urgently to prosecute party business, the first vice chairman duly convened a National Executive Committee meeting on the internal election matters. On his return, the chairman publicly rebuked the first vice chairman for convening the said meeting in a manner unbecoming of a national chairman of our great party. It is trite knowledge that the first vice chairman acts in the absence of the chairman, and it will be mischievous, if not an act of gross misconduct, for the chairman to assume that only he alone can function in in that capacity, even when he is not immediately available to attend urgent matters. 3, the national chairman, without the prior authorization of the National Executive Committee, appointed a company to produce party cards and collect dues on behalf of the party, again without recourse to or relevant input from the national treasurer. In particular, the treasurer, who is the custodian of the party's funds, has made statements to the effect that he has no access to the funds accruing from that exercise, notwithstanding his continued attempts to be properly briefed. Number 4, the most recent action of the chairman in relation to an internal matter he reported to the National Executive Committee, which he chairs, is difficult to comprehend. It would be recalled that following his report, the NEC set up a committee to investigate the matter, but before the committee could finish its work, a person who purported to be a member of the party reported the matter to the police, and the national chairman did not come out in public to disapprove of this, since this was highly irregular and offended our constitution by the provision that we should not take such matters to the public while the issue was being handled internally. Well, there are other issues that he talks about, a very final issue. And then the other gentleman who also petitioned, Alhaji Suleiman Yeremia, also has a 2-point long, it's rather how many, 6-point long petition also to the committee, all saying that the chairman has acted in ways that offends the constitution. Writing to the bank to say he and the general secretary are the only ones who are entitled. Is that wrong according to your constitution?
Well, there is supposed to be, from this specific issue, there's supposed to be collective leadership. And there's supposed to be financial accountability. So if a key member of the finance team, in which case the treasurer, who actually is supposed to report on the finances of the party, is not aware of financial dealings on the bank accounts of the party, and that claim is upheld or found to have some value, then it becomes quite a serious matter. So I'm happy that you went through the various grievances by the petitioners. I also have a few here that you didn't mention, but for lack of time.
No, go ahead and share them, because I'm interested in getting our listeners and viewers to know what particular charges have been preferred against, Afoko, leading to what has happened.
The main charge is that the conduct and the style of leadership has persistently brought the party into disrepute and public ridicule and caused internal turmoil. And then they backed it with these instances. They talk about the meetings of the NPP being characterized by police protection, which wasn't the case previously. They talked about the fact that under his watch, his brother is involved in the murder of a regional chairman.
Accused.
Yes, I'm so involved. I didn't say husband. Okay. Involved or charged, if you like, with being involved in the murder of a regional chairman and his direct brother, and they thought that also didn't all go well for the position. They also talked about irregular meetings of the national organs of the party, the steering committee, the national executive committee, the national council. The chairman hasn't been calling regular meetings, which would allow them to exercise collective leadership. And so it then gave him the chance to take unilateral decisions and so on, and which then led to complaints from other members of these bodies and caused internal turmoil in the party. So they have all kinds of grievances, which in summary, they believe that these grievances do not inure to the benefit of the party, and that as chairman, he should be sanctioned for presiding over this
and
issue.
The disciplinary committee upheld their
the chairman didn't avail himself of the platform of the disciplinary committee. So they had to do investigations. Some of these issues could easily be investigated. And then they came to the conclusion that, yes, there was merit in the petition And so they recommended that the chairman be suspended.
He didn't avail himself, and we understand that the vice chairman called him like 4 times. Is that how to invite him to such an important process? Phone call?
No, I don't see that in the report.
No, that's what we've been told so far.
By
that the first vice chair called him like 4 times and didn't make himself available.
First vice chair of which one?
Of the party.
No, the disciplinary committee. The first vice chair is not a member.
Okay.
Of the disciplinary committee.
Right.
And what you are saying is not in the report of the disciplinary committee. The first meeting, the chairman sent lawyers, so he was aware, and the lawyers pleaded that the meeting be adjourned because the chairman wasn't available. So the meeting was adjourned to the date suggested by his lawyers. On the second meeting, at the date suggested by his lawyers, he still did not show up. But the lawyers showed up, and they came with some medical reports showing that the chairman was indisposed. But the committee claims that their investigation showed that the chairman actually chaired a meeting that very afternoon. So it cast doubt on the medical report that the chairman was indisposed. But at that meeting, the lawyers still requested for another date, and they fixed the date. And on that third date, the chairman still did not show up. This time, the excuse was that he wanted to choose a venue of his, he wanted the meeting to take place at a venue of his choosing at a later date, at which point the committee decided that they needed to proceed with their mandates. So that's what happened. So they based their findings on the petition and their own investigation, and their conclusion was that yes, they upheld the petition and recommended that the chairman be suspended indefinitely. They brought their findings and recommendation to the National Executive Committee. Now, the National Executive Committee should be convened by the chairman, according to the party's constitution. So there was a difficulty there. The Disciplinary Committee had also recommended to the NEC that because the chairman, Afoko, was the subject matter of the report, and natural justice would not be served if he was to be a judge in his own case, they recommended that the next person in line, that's the first vice chairman, should convene the meeting and preside. So the first vice chairman proceeded to call the meeting.
No, I thought that is rather where I brought in the first vice chairman calling him, because the understanding earlier was that he was calling him to come convene that meeting and then recuse himself, and then they would take over.
Well, I'm not aware of that. That information was not available at the NEC meeting.
Okay.
But what was available is that the disciplinary committee, as part of their recommendations, averred that because the subject matter was the chairman's conduct, it would be a little incongruous to have him call a meeting to preside over his conduct. So it would be best for the first vice to call the meeting.
Right.
So when the meeting was called, the issue came up, and the meeting decided to endorse the recommendation of the disciplinary committee that the first vice chaired the meeting. So the meeting proceeded, and it was unanimous that the recommendation of the disciplinary committee be upheld and that the chairman be suspended indefinitely. So that was carried.
Indefinitely.
And a statement, yes.
During the time of the suspension, is there supposed to be anything going on between the party and himself? We know of situations where people have been suspended. Josiah was suspended, and I think he's still on suspension. Kofi Adams was suspended. He asked for him. It took some months, close to a year, and then he was restored. So for how long is he going to be on suspension? Indefinitely?
Indefinitely means he may come back next week. That there could be some development which would prompt the National Executive Committee to rescind his decision. Mind you also that the chairman has 3 weeks from yesterday.
14 days, I heard.
21 days.
Okay, 21 days.
From yesterday to appeal against the decision of the National Executive Committee on whatever grounds, whether on procedural grounds, whether on legal grounds, whether on fair play, whatever. he has 21 days to complain the petition to the National Council. The National Council is a higher body with much more authority than the National Executive Committee.
From what you understand, he may not be interested in going through the party structures any longer because there's already a suit that's been filed at the High Court. It actually sought also to injunct yesterday's meeting, but it was too late in the day. The meeting had already happened. Yes.
It would be advisable to go through the party structure. I mean, if you went through the party structure, it doesn't curtail your right to the courts, but it would be advisable to go through the process put down by the party.
If he does not believe that he will get justice in that process, he has every right to go to court. Yes. Okay. What do you make of all of this?
Well, Samson, I think that some of us saw this coming. I mean, anyone who has followed and monitored developments in the NPP, right from the Supreme Court case and the aftermath, the developments and the setups to defend the interests of one individual, to make that person the sole candidate, it was very obvious that there were going to be fallouts. So even before the Tamale Congress.
Was there a sole candidate somewhere?
Oh, no. When you were speaking, I was quiet.
No, for clarification.
There were many things that I could have said to interject, but I was quiet.
This is just a question.
I believe that our viewers know exactly what I'm talking about.
I don't know. That's
about
why I'm
the orchestrated pilgrimage to, pledge loyalty to Nana Akufo-Addo even before nominations were open for people to pick up forms and vie for the flag bearership. They stripped to the UK to seek God's intervention and blessings to come back, the triumphant return. I mean, it was very obvious that all of this was meant to achieve a particular goal.
Which is what? Sole candidate?
To make him the flag bearer, which is what has been achieved. But then there's been a fallout.
You said sole candidate.
What I'm saying is that what you are going through now has a history. And that is the fallout from that process. The effort was there to try and intimidate potential rivals, supposedly from different camps.
And you are saying this because the belief is that Mr. Paul Afoko, Kwabena Japan and co. were supporting Alan Chairmanship.
Exactly. I mean, it is played out, and I mean, even with the recent developments, I mean, word is out there, not from me. If you've been listening to party sympathizers across the length and breadth of the country, I mean, they are saying that this is exactly why there was the effort in the first place to try and bastardize Paul and his candidacy, accusations of having gone to rehab, drug dealing, homosexuality, people being camped in Tamale and paid to vote against him, yet he prevailed.
There's mudslinging in all your internal party processes.
Exactly my point. So this that is happening now certainly is not devoid of that context, be it true or a perception. What is happening now is being seen as finishing what is considered as unfinished business.
But always, after the acrimonious contest, all the parties come together to forge,
that is why being in government, we have every reason to be worried, because we would expect that the biggest opposition party at this point certainly will be very unified to be able to challenge us credibly, put forth policy alternatives, so we can debate the issues and give the best to the good people of this country. Not this today, this tomorrow, that. I mean, and to be honest with you, Reku Brobe is on record to have said that all of this is a contest towards controlling the resources of the party. And when he was on NIT FM talking about the fact that it is because resources are available. Some people want to have control of those resources, which then talks about the divisions. The secretary seems to be aligned with the chairman. The first vice chairman seems to be aligned with the treasurer. And then you have an issue of membership of bank accounts. And then what is most ridiculous to me is these charges that seem to have been the basis of this suspension. So is it now the case that when your brother has been accused of an act of criminality, you should take the blame for it? I mean, seriously. So if I, Dr. Clement Apak, my brother Dr. Daniel Apak, engages in an act that is of a criminal nature, should Clement Apak be blamed and on that basis be sanctioned? And then you talk about unorthodox style of leadership. For God's sake, how do you define that? You know, is he always hopping on only one foot?
They give examples, so.
Well, they should tell us, because if you say unorthodox style of leadership, I don't understand.
They
that.
give examples, trying to arrange meetings without involving all the other parties,
Well,
the other members
as far as he knows, he has acted according to the rules. And I've heard the General Secretary, only yesterday, a statement has come out. They've all called what happened an illegality. They believe that, you know, the first vice that does not have the locus to have convened the meeting. And as far as the chairman is in the jurisdiction and has not indicated his inability to dispense his constitutional responsibility. So, to be honest with you, I think that all of this that is happening can squarely be blamed on the flag bearer of the NPP.
Why?
Nana Akufo-Addo has not demonstrated leadership.
What has he done?
He has demonstrated his incapacity to unify his party. He has demonstrated his willingness to achieve his goal, even if their ultimate goal of achieving power.
What do you want him to do?
Well, as the leader of the party, as the flag bearer, who is going to be on the ballot, certainly you would have expected that he would not, in a very subtle way, have taken sides in this matter. But it is very clear. I mean, I just saw a statement that has come to bear where he's jumping the gun and talking about the fact that this issue has now been put behind us. Unity is restored and let's fight together to topple.
I think that's
but
you know this.
Well, I'll cross check it.
It is fake.
I'll cross check it.
Yeah, but he knows it's fake.
I'll cross check it. I'll cross check it.
It's been
I
put
don't know
on
if it's
social
fake.
media
I
by
don't
some
know.
NDC
I don't know
communicators.
it is fake.
It is fake. I am telling you.
Well, I'll cross check
I've
it.
just heard he's now issuing a statement.
Very good. Then I'll
which
wait.
will be made public
I will
through the
hold my
party
horses
channels.
I tell you what, when I read it,
I'll hold my
I had my
horses on that.
suspicions because
Fantastic.
Because you see, if you follow Nana Akufo-Addo, you should know how he writes what he writes.
If you have drawn my attention to it,
And I think
I
even,
really hold my horses
even,
on that.
even
I'll wait for his official
the
statement.
issues of concord in the sentences were not correct.
Yeah,
so
you should have
I had
seen
my
that.
suspicions. I
Samson,
ignored it.
if you
Yeah.
have drawn my attention to it, I really hold my horses on
Okay.
that.
A crude
that-
type of misinformation.
But you don't seem to see that. You don't seem to see, from the perspective of members of the NP, some members of the NPP, or the majority of them at least, that this is where they are beginning the new chapter of a peaceful, united force to capture power.
Samson, how are you going to talk about a peaceful, united force when a national chairman has been suspended indefinitely, although he has the right to appeal? But even in your preamble, you talked about several other examples where, you know, those mechanisms have not been utilized or they have been fruitless. He also has a constituency. He has followers. And if you have been monitoring the media landscape, people are very peeved and angered by this process. They truly think that, as I said earlier, this is part of an unfinished business.
But
and there's going to be a fallout.
But there's also the majority, I can safely say, who
How
feel
do you
who
talk
feel
about
this is
the
the way
majority?
to go.
But the guy was elected. He was elected at a well-constituted, you know, Congress internally.
Elected people are accountable to those who elected them.
That is the point. So he also has followers who don't
No,
agree
if
that
the party, they are subject.
what was done
elected
was the
people
right-
are
the
subject
right
to the
thing to do.
constitution of the party.
And as far as
It is the same party that made him the the chairman.
Fantastic.
That is being used to remove him.
Fantastic. But what they are also
Suspending.
saying is that even the manner in which this occurrence took place is in breach of the constitution of the party. And that is why you said earlier on that some of them had even gone to court.
Right.
Although a bit late to not have affected the meeting, which purportedly has suspended him, the case could still be held.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we can't speak about this being behind
Let
us.
me hear. Let me hear.
Anyway,
Kweku-
you let me
let me hear Kweku on this.
I would
you
allow
don't
you to
believe that
continue.
this provides the
Of course I have a lot to say.
NPP. Sorry, you don't believe that this provides the NPP the opportunity to close the chapter of the repeated, regular fighting within its headquarters. Yesterday there was one such ugly. situation again. You don't believe this is where they close that chapter and move forward?
Well, I do not want to be a soothsayer in this. It would be difficult to make a prediction whether this is the end of it. I've always advocated for a policy of containment and progressive neutralization of the mischief, perceived mischief, represented by Mr. Afoko and Kobne Japan in course of since the Tamale Congress. I've always thought it was in the larger interest of the NPP to contain the issues. Policy
of containment and progressive neutralization.
Yes, that has always been my stance.
Okay.
You recall when there was that whole thing about impeachment, I actually spoke against it and was within this contest. I had the opportunity of even calling the flag bearer and making my case as an outsider, of course, but in a very convincing way. He heard my voice. And they've tried. Somewhere along the line, I thought they were managing the process. Now we've reached the point of an indefinite suspension. It is not expulsion. It's not a remover. So perhaps it's still within the containment principle, but quite extreme. And that has provided ammunition for, of course, the party's detractors to now begin to peddle all sorts of things, which I'm sure we'll come to. But I think this was avoidable. And I am blaming, and I'm sorry to do this, I think the chairman's posture and reaction to the disciplinary process that was initiated is the cause of where we have reached now. Why was the chairman unable to appear in person before the committee in spite of the consistent invitations? What was it that disabled him from appearing? And even if he didn't appear personally, those who appeared on his behalf, I'm told of some 2 lawyers. What was the submission that was made? Was it a defense against the specific allegations that had been made? Or was it to provide an excuse for his inability to attend? Is it because some are arguing that the disciplinary committees have had no jurisdiction to handle him? I've heard MPP, in fact, his spokesperson, say so.
Yeah.
How does he contest that? When they went before the committee, was that the case they made? That you, the disciplinary committee, you have no jurisdiction when it is a matter of disciplinary action against chairman of the party. Did they make that case? And which part of the constitution did they point to? You see, all this.
There are some who would choose silence when you are doing wrong and watch you to consummate your wrong. Then they go to a higher body to quash your decision.
The party's constitution says deal with the issues internally. I believe a chairman of that stature, of a political party of the stature of the NPP, must show leadership as well as discipline by contesting those things from within first. Indeed, if you go to court with the kind of contest you did internally and prove it, your case might be stronger in the court of law. Okay? This is politics. It's a political party organization. It's a live human organism. There are all sorts of characters in there. Some may be pursuing the thing in a noble way, some may be playing pure mischief. And as chairman, elected so as we all say, and knowing the party's constitution, even if that body lacked jurisdiction, once you sent people there, you were in a way conceding that you could go there and deal with some issues. So go there, contest their lack of jurisdiction using your party's constitution. If you chose to defend yourself against those allegations, I'm sure you could prove to the committee that all these allegations are baseless.
Koku, briefly, what do you make of the allegations?
See, there are many of them there. I've read some. But let's pick some critical ones. For instance, and I said that on this platform as well as I think Good Morning Ghana some time ago, the thing to do with the EcoBank account, the whole saga. I know there's a committee sitting on it. I don't know when the committee's report will come out. Maybe Akomia may be able to help us. But you see, if you recall that when the complaint was lodged by somebody who says he's a member of the party, Akomea may authenticate that claim as well. I don't know. So perhaps it would be safe for my part to say he is a member of the party. Lodged a complaint with the police. When the police contacted the chairman, and I have said this publicly, that my own police CID sources authenticated the claim to me, that the chairman who had headed, put in place a committee, a party committee, to investigate that matter. When the police contacted him, the chairman cooperated with the police. I found that contradictory. In fact, I found that as something that lacked appropriate party discipline. All you could have done was to say, we are investigating it. Perhaps the results will be handed over to you if we find any criminality. You are the chairman of the party. You've elected a committee to set up another body to investigate an issue. Somebody then lodges a complaint with the police. If the police called you, you the chairman, you are not supposed to begin to collaborate with the police. Indeed, it was his collaboration with the police that encouraged the police to write a letter inviting the first vice chairman and the treasurer to come and cooperate with them. That's a fact. For me, I don't see that as bordering on party discipline. So that issue is a legitimate issue to raise in a petition. Now, how do you deal with it in terms of adjudication? The chairman ought to have been there to contest that allegation in the petition, okay? Did you or did you not give the police the green light? When you went to the police or had an interaction with the police, what exactly did you tell the police? That helps. Avoidance of that issue is not in your larger national self-interest. That's one. Now, let's take the thing about the party ID cards. Look, it's messy. And I've had occasion to discuss that as well. Clearly, there was no consensus. I've seen their reports. In the finance committee, and I have to be fair here, in the finance committee, it appears majority of the finance committee members opted for what the chairman and the general secretary launched. If you recall, there was a certain event where they launched the project.
Okay.
But there was controversy surrounding that particular thing, to the extent that an earlier incident occurred where police arrested some people. I'm sure you know about that story. So the question was that this matter, and a very brilliant idea, new party ID card that comes with fundraising aspect, subject that into the ratification of the National Executive Committee or the National Council. Everybody knew that it had become an issue in the party, and there was the need for a higher body to do a determination of the issue. But before you said Jack, the chairman was at a press conference or a public event launching the project. And you see what happened? The treasurer came out with some other statement. That project became stillborn. Straight away, it means that that project was dead on arrival. Such a very important, critical party project. That's what the second one. You see, the thing about bank accounts, and I'm not too sure about the accuracy of one of the things you read about the treasurer having been taken out of a certain particular bank account. Right. I think the subject matter is rather principal signatory. Because you see, I've read this document, a certain so-called resolution. I've said so-called because there's an element of doubt. But at least, at that time, it appears the treasurer, the general secretary, and the chairman were on good terms. So they wrote this letter to the Ghana Commercial Bank that the three of them were the signatories, and that any two could sign the check.
That will be the resolution. That's what you require.
Yes. So they did so. So on the face of it, if the chairman and the general secretary were to sign checks to Ghana Commercial Bank, they had done nothing wrong, fundamentally wrong, without the treasurer. Now it becomes a bit odd to ask why the treasurer, consistently, chairman, general secretary could be signing without reference to treasurer and without the treasurer's knowledge. So it's tricky. So the treasurer, I think, raised the issue of principal signatory. At least you should be the chairman, either the chairman or the general secretary, and
the treasurer.
Treasurer. Yeah. It makes sense to me, business-wise.
In most constitutions of businesses, that's what it's supposed to be.
Fantastic. So this matter was advanced by the treasurer, and I have documentation to show that the National Council agreed with the treasurer, took a decision that that ought to be the issue. That appears not to have been effected. But when the treasurer went to the commercial bank to ask for bank statements, he was told that no, we are not dealing with you. We are in the instructions not to give you bank statements. That's an oddity of the highest order. So that element in the petition is also legit. Except that I'm saying there's a certain inaccuracy.
So you endorse the outcome?
I wish it hadn't gotten to that stage. I have to be very honest with you, because you see, it's political dynamics in the time frame before election, campaign, all that. But those others who have been debating said, look here, the man has become a stumbling block. The party is virtually going to a stage of creeping immobilization. So the cure for that mischief is to suspend. I wish it hadn't come to that. But you see, thank God, it is not a finality. The party's own constitution indicates that there's an option of appeal.
Couldn't he just have been reprimanded? This option of appeal thing.
No, if you know the history.
You may think also that because of the back of the history he has at the back of his mind, that, like Dr. Park said, there appears to be an agenda from the onset to remove him.
No, see,
so he feels that all of these people have their biases, prejudice towards him. So he will not go to them, hand himself to them for him to hand
from
it.
the onset, certain decisions were taken that backfired. From the onset, certain decisions that were cast in a unilateral mood were implemented and got reversed. Am I right? You remember the decision to move the security elements from the party?
Right.
You remember the suspension, or is it the proceed on leave imposed on Perry Okujoto?
Right.
And I think the removal of the director of finance. You remember? All those decisions were apparently unilateral, based on what somebody thought was his power. They got reversed. So please, from the onset, let's look at the style of leadership, the conduct of the executive administration, and what it also brought about. You remember I said something on this program, that I think some people didn't do a good reading of the balance of forces because of what had happened in Tamale. Some people thought that what had happened in Tamale was actually a blank check for an unbridled exercise of power and authority. It was a misreading of the balance of forces within the party. You could have won, all right, as chairman or general secretary or as national organizer, but you ought to have known that you were dealing with a bigger community who all had a stake. And leadership requires that you are realistic and strategic in your calculations. You miscalculate, my goodness, you create problems for yourself. This was self-inflicted. Do you understand me? In my candid opinion, it could have been avoided all the same if the chairman, I think, had positioned himself properly and contested this thing properly. I don't think he did that.
Very interesting there. But Nana, tell me, one of the major complaints is about, Chairman Afoko during his period having police protection, his meetings at the party headquarters characterized by police protection. Why? Is it the suggestion that it is wrong for a man who is unsure of his security to protect himself? Why should that be a crime?
I don't know if anybody had said that it's a crime.
Oh, but he's been punished for that.
Which one?
It's part of the grounds of the petition. And you said so you echoed that point, that most of his meetings at the party headquarters were characterized by police protection, police presence.
No. That assertion is not in relation to the chairman's security. That assertion is related to the fact that NPP meetings were always or frequently were being characterized by rancor and bickering, that you needed external security to maintain order. And people thought it was an affront to the party because we didn't have this situation before.
And he was the cause.
Well, rightly or wrongly, the petitioners ascribed it to his leadership, that these incidents have happened under his watch. They didn't happen under any other chairman's watch. So in their view, it is a result of his leadership style, that there was so much bitterness and rancor and internal division that even meetings of the national organs of the party, you needed the presence of the police, and they thought that that wasn't right for the party. But you know, my brother, Mr. Park, Dr. Park, made some interesting comments that I find interesting. He said that there was an orchestration to, there was some orchestration to achieve sole candidature for Nana Akufo-Addo, and this is the basis of the chairman's problems. Mr. Park, you know that is not true.
Okay.
Nana Akufo-Addo
but see, we have gone over that
yes,
over and again.
No,
and you know, for obvious purposes, there are two parties, you do this. But see, we are aware of a statement allegedly issued by Mr. Afoko's spokesperson, or comments to the effect that he is still in charge.
Well, let me deal quickly with that so I can come back to Dr. Park. Something. I mean, as for the chairman making statements that he disagrees with the situation, I'm not surprised. I would have wished that those statements are channeled to the proper organ of the party, because you have recourse to appeal to the National Council. So if you thought that there was anything wrong with the decision, whether the legality or procedure or whatever, the proper body is not the public, because the public cannot reinstate you. It has to be the National Council. So I wish that that is done. But Nana Akufo-Addo, for the record, Mr. Park, was not a sole candidate. If you are looking for sole candidates, is John Mahama.
I said there was
who is this? Well, but there was no such thing. It was John Mahama who was the sole candidate.
Right.
The person who tried to contest John Mahama, the president. The first, they were told that he didn't have a form. When he proved that he had a form, they said that the form was fake. When he proved that the form wasn't fake, they said the person who gave it to him had no authority. At the end of the day, they even said that the man was on sound mind, and so they didn't let him. So if you are looking for orchestration to achieve a sole candidature, that is the real example. Okay? Now, APAC talk about factions. They're supposed to be some Alan Kyerematen faction and an Akufo-Addo faction. But you see Alan Kyerematen and Akufo-Addo together in the trenches. So what is this fetish about factions? And then the NDC, can I finish? Can I
your flag bearer in the company
finish?
of your party chairman and secretary?
Can I finish?
Does that mean that this crisis?
Okay, can I finish?
Some of those who are watching and listening to us say, for example, Boachijan says that sacking Paul Afoko should be a security of peace and stability in the NPP. You see how some of the NPP people are thinking, not the Boachijan you know. Also, this one too from Martin Luther, he says, he says that the NPP is governed by rules and regulations, and no individual is above the Constitution, not even the flag bearer. The decision by NEC will put sanity to the into the party. So, you see, there are members of the party who think this is a good thing. But what's the point?
Yeah,
no, wait, who wants to make a point?
You made a point about the spokesperson of Mr. Afoko having issued a statement that Mr. Afoko was still in charge. Correct?
Yes.
I would have opted for Mr. Afoko to contest this suspension decision via the appeal process.
Okay.
But if let me finish. But if he says he's still in charge, you see, I think it's a very interesting occasion.
I'm trying to speak to Mr. Afoko on the phone. That's why.
Yes. Let's. And in fact, it would be good to ask him. I would want him to test his being in charge by seeking or trying to convene a meeting of the steering committee, National Executive Committee meeting, and National Council, and see if those meetings will come up. This is the best way to test whether the king is indeed naked or not.
Okay, now, thankfully, just hold on for me. I have on the line Peter Topare, who is a lawyer for Paul Afoko. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Is this Dr. Topare?
Yes.
Thank you. Good. So tell us now, what do you make of what has happened or befalling your client?
Well, I think the principal reason for which I called in to make a clarification or to correct the statement that is made by Nana Akufo-Addo in respect to the fact that Chairman Afoko has deliberately refused to appear before the disciplinary committee. With the greatest respect, I think that is not true. Chairman Afoko made several attempts to appear. The first one was that he was suffering from ill health and he could not appear. The second time, we produced medical reports to prove that.
Yes, he spoke about that.
We want the whole world to believe that that is a lie, right?
No, okay, yeah, he did suggest that he was in.
Yes, yes. Yeah. The third instance where appeared was when security concerns were raised that the venue chosen was not safe for Chairman Afoko to appear. This was brought to the attention of the Disciplinary Committee, and suggestions were made to the effect that he prepared to appear at a different venue where he thinks that his favor is prepared to foot the bill for that. And don't forget, in the face of all these, 2 preliminary objections were raised. What is the effect of preliminary objections in the quasi-judicial proceeding? Where 2 preliminary objections are raised, for me, my understanding of the law is that you have to defend those preliminary objections before you get into the merits of the case.
That is correct.
The committee, as we speak, has not given us any ruling. From first sitting, second sitting, third sitting, no ruling has been given on the 2 preliminary objections.
What were these objections about?
One of them is natural justice.
And what did it say specifically?
Madame Amabuzia is a member of Council of Elders. Professor Mapokwe, who is a member of the committee, is also a member of Council of Elders. Now, don't forget that the subject matter of the proceeding was brought by the Council of Elders. So the Council of Elders sat with these 2 individuals, took a decision that let's refer this man to the Disciplinary Committee and proceeded. The 2 individuals who took part in the decision to petition and have petitioned have proceeded to the Disciplinary Committee to take a decision or to look into the petition they themselves have drafted.
As we are,
the second one,
yes, but let's clear this. As we are told, the petition that seems to have originated from the Council of Elders is not what was determined.
You can look that is wicked politics. The other 2 petitions they are talking about, ask the committee whether they have officially written to Afoko about them. Ask them. So how could you have based your decisions on that? It's probably false.
Interesting.
Let's just be clear. That look, I'm not into politics, but it's about the law.
Right.
When 2 preliminary objections are raised in the quasi-judicial proceeding, it is the duty of that committee to defend those questions before they can go into the substance.
May we know what the second preliminary objection was about?
The second objection, my brother, was on jurisdiction. Remember, they're saying that he's suspended indefinitely, more or less a removal. It's a dethronement. Of course, if you look at how to remove a person or the constitutional rules in the MPP structures, how a person should be removed, it is basically about Article 10. And that will have to have some taking place for 40% of those who are the delegates who have elected him, and then supporting the petition for the removal. And then the final process must be an extraordinary delegate Congress to determine those questions. Now you have Article 4, which is talking about disciplinary proceedings. So you are using disciplinary proceedings to remove somebody.
Is this
they say he's been suspended, not removed.
Indefinitely, my brother. He's been suspended.
That's not the same as remover.
He has been suspended indefinitely. Now, they're talking about his fiscal appearance. Let me address that before I run away. This is not a criminal proceeding. Afoko is not charged for stealing goods or goats or donkeys in the street. It's a civil proceeding. And we know it's a settled law that where it is a criminal proceeding, a civil proceeding, the physical presence of the person may not be necessary if the person is represented by lawyers. So this man was represented by 2 lawyers who have made 2 preliminary objections. So even if you wanted to proceed with the substantive merits of the case, you would have told us that, look, we don't agree with your arguments on the preliminary objection. We want you to proceed.
Okay.
On the substantive, that was not done.
Right. So
we thought this exercise was a mere sham.
So you are in the High Court seeking to challenge the fact that there was not a ruling on the 2 preliminary objections before this proceeded. Is that so?
Oh, no. That's a different matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But we understand that your client insists that he's in charge. Is that your advice to him?
Well, we think he's in charge because what has been done is void ab initio. And of course, we will proceed to test the system anyway as to whether or not he's still in charge.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time,
Dr. As we are concerned, he's in charge.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Atupare. Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. The gentleman.
We need to conclude on this.
Yes.
What we had actually been doing was that we're trying to raise Mr. Afoko himself on the line because he had indicated that he wanted to also be able to speak.
Yes.
Yes. Rather than radio.
Well, it's okay. And the gentleman stated that I had said that Mr. Afoko refused to appear before the committee. No, I didn't say. I said he did not. I didn't say he refused. And that is captured in the committee's report to the National Executive Committee. I did not also say that his medical report was a lie. I said that when the report was brought on the day before the meeting, that he had some problem. And the report was signed by a medical doctor at the Tamale Teaching Hospital.
Yet on that same day, he refused to. He didn't appear.
Yes.
What did you seek to achieve with that?
No, I'm saying it's in the report of the committee.
Right.
So the committee found that unusual. So it's not me saying so. It's the report of the committee about the jurisdiction of which the
committee, the disciplinary committee, right? Yeah.
Well, look, I can read you the MPP constitution on this. What is it? The disciplinary committee.
He's saying the question of jurisdiction is that what you did, the outcome is a removal. And there is a process for removal. That process for removal is not a disciplinary process.
So I'm
about a 40%.
We should answer that question first.
Listen to just this short.
No, but there is history to guide us. There are people who are still on indefinite suspension from parties as general secretaries.
Let me just read a part of the constitution that will make the point clearer. Page 8, suspension of a member. This is a part of the disciplinary procedures. Say, a member may be suspended from membership of the party or holding any office of the party pending an inquiry into his or her conduct by a disciplinary committee.
Pending the inquiry.
So even
this is the conclusion of the inquiry.
I'm saying that even before they start the hearings, they have the power to suspend.
Yeah, they didn't do that.
So they didn't even decide. Then when it comes to Gene, the next page, page 9, talks about the expulsion of a member. A member may be expelled from the party on grounds of misconduct in accordance with the provisions of this constitution upon such another thing. But you see, the gentleman is talking about removal of an executive, which is Article 10, which is another option and a different procedure.
Yes, but you see, from your reading of the provision for suspension, it does appear to me on the face of it that the suspension may be irregular because the suspension ought to come ahead of the disciplinary process.
No, say a member may. So it's in the discretion of the disciplinary committee. But the point I want to emphasize is that the committee actually have the power to even suspend you before they even start the proceedings. Once they admit the petition and they write to you,
that is very normal with almost every disciplinary process.
So they had so much options that they didn't.
Well, very interesting. The chairman was ill-advised. This is not just the law; it's also politics put together.
But politics, the Constitution requires the parties to have internal democratic principles.
Right, that is why the chairman ought to have realized that. You don't get a point. I didn't exclude it. I said it's political legal. That's what it is. And if you are chairman of the party and such petitions have been brought against you, look, I'm telling you, the first thing you do, you contest it from within. You do that, prove that these allegations, these things here are all false.
Interesting.
Interesting.
A very interesting message here by Samuel Brian Boabing. You know him. He's with the NPP. He says that Mr. Afoko's spokesperson reminds us of DSP Cephas Atta saying the police is in charge, quote unquote, in charge, when he was running for his life.
He's gone.
The neck has spoken. Finito. Well, it appears to be how most of the NPP people believe is what is going on. And I've got some of your messages. I'll take my time and read a bit more of them to all of you. Thank you very much. You wanted to make your last point so that we close on the... It's Dr. Parker I was referring to.
Very quickly. You've been speaking a lot on this issue.
Yes, so pay attention to me. Pay attention to me. Respond to what I'm asking you. Quickly get done.
Samson, you see, this is just beginning. It is very clear that Chairman Afoko, and indeed the pronouncements made by his lawyer, suggest that they are going to fight this, that they believe is an illegality and is not supported.
So we are going to see the FPP in more trouble, rather?
Well, if you ask me, yes. And he has every right to defend his own integrity and his position, you know.
But is it not curious that initially the thing was about Mr. Afoko and Japan, and now it's only Afoko that's been dealt with somehow?
That shows you that people are not just engaged in some blind vendetta, that people are engaged based on facts. If there's a blind vendetta, then you could say, oh, some people have been targeted. There's no targeting. My last point I wanted to make was that Mr. Park said that it's all a failure of leadership on the part of Akufo-Addo.
You want to go back to that?
No, just that, because that point is important.
Well, no, it is. Because
yes. The NDC will say that for as long as Nana Akufo-Addo is
and we have to expose the hypocrisy. Today, as we speak, the CD is a failure of leadership.
Okay.
The Dumso is a failure of leadership.
You have said this over and again on this same platform.
To continue saying
let's move on.
The NDC.
We're taking a quick break here. When we return, we will ask questions about the presidential diaries. How much does it cost to print diaries? Where did we get the information from? And what are we doing going forward? We'll be right back. And also the IEA being accused of usurping, quote unquote, that's the NDC's words, usurping the role of the Electoral Commission. Really? We'll be right back.
Oh, you don't believe it?
Thank you very much. I've got really loads of your messages. Let me see how I can deal with some of them. Very, very... And you do your best. Don't make your message too long. If you do that, you discourage me from reading it, because you have to make time for some other people who also send their messages. Now, this one is coming from Cecil Kwabena. He says, serious strategic political party won't take such a decision at this time. Obviously, NPP has shot itself in the foot, suspending Afoko. Then also Sadat Nabila says that I cry for my NPP. It's unfortunate and pathetic, but Freddie Blay will soon be exposed. Then also you have Tanko Osman sending about the judges, the issue we dealt with earlier. He says that the judges should be treated like common criminals. They are like the many criminals that have been jailed, and they should have been arrested and kept in custody while the hearing is ongoing. Then there is Miss Sticky Aiki, and she says, has the police checked with airports if Ajit Nassam has flown out of the country? And that is where another lawyer, also sends this message. He says that, Samson, he says, I should tell my panelists to credit Ajit Nassam with some bit of intelligence. How would a judge run away from a misdemeanor offense? Please let your panel credit the judge with some intelligence. Bribery and corruption is not murder, but a misdemeanor. It is sickening. So he didn't show up at that place simply because he just doesn't want to, like Kukupako intimated. But the criminal process, what's going to happen? The point also needs to be made that, yes, it's a misdemeanor, which meant that you could get just a very short time in jail, but it's been, the punishment has been elevated by the enhancement process, or what do you call it? Is it an act or regulation? It's been enhanced, so you can go to jail for up to 25 years. Thank you.
Is he going to be able to come back and do?
No, you can't do anything.
So that is the key.
In the end, you lose everything as a lawyer, as a judge.
Yes.
Yes. So that's also.
You should take a look at that aspect.
Okay. Philip Wright says, according to Afoko's lawyer on Newsfile, he is still in charge, but they will head to the law court to test whether he is still in charge. Then he laughs and says, this is confusion basa. You are only chairman in your own bedroom. So these are MPP people, and they feel that this is something good. Then Ohiniba Apia Kubi says, Dr. Park and the NDC are crying because their mole has been uprooted.
Really?
Using the word uprooted reminds me of Paul Afoko. He said that he was going to uproot the NDC like uprooting cassava. And you people seem to have uprooted him before he would do that, that job for you. Okay.